So we continue our reading today. Like I said last time, it would be a good idea if you all try to see what we have read so far. And if you can't read all of that, but at least you can read the content of this book in the index, and then you can freshen up your memory of what we have read so far. I would quickly go through what we have done so far in this book. So we started by introductory of the subject, the inspiration, Advaita, the introduction, the author and the book, and then adoration of the teacher. Teacher as a supreme Brahman. About the work, fourfold qualification. Remember, this is very significant. I would highly encourage all of you to reread it and kind of refresh your memory and refresh your knowing of what are these fourfold qualification for the spiritual seeker. I would rather quickly refresh memory. These are the discrimination, dispassion, 6 self-control aids, and yearning for liberation. So, Viveka, Vairagya, Sat Sampatti Yodna, Sadhana, and liberation, the intense desire for liberation. This qualification is requirement of any spiritual seeker. We may not have it, but we can develop it by reading it as many times as you are convinced. So these are these fourfold qualification, which are the discrimination, dispassion, 6 sadhanas, mastering the oneself. Then came to self-knowledge, the Atman, the body, the subtle body, organs of knowledge, organs of action, causal body, the 3 states. We read recently 3 states. These are the state of wake up, waking state, dreaming state, and the deep sleep state. Now we are taking 5 sheaths. Food sheath, Pranamayakosa, life force, which is Pranamayakosa, and that is what we are going to read today. So this is how one can try to recall what we have read so far and what we have understood. So we completed these 3 state. Now we are taking up the 5 koshas. Last we read the Annamaya kosha. Today we start with Pranamaya kosha, or life force. That's page 188. So in the beginning of this chapter, it is a narration of a short analogy, a story about, I'm not going to read it because it is just the narration of the significance of prana. So different part of the body had a competition to decide which one is the better one, which one is more important. And finally it came down to realizing that prana is the most important aspect and very significant. So I start from the second paragraph of page 188. The word prana is generally translated as life breath, but Swamiji says that it is not correct. Even Brahma Sutra, they are not airs as they have been discussed separately. Prana is not merely a breath, but it is the energy that is flowing all through the body. It is not only runs the body, but also runs the cosmos. Such is the power of prana. In this Brahma Sutra commentary, Shankara quotes an interesting dialogue from the Satpatha Brahmana. While describing creation, it was said that immediately after creation, the sages were not there. Who were the sages? Asked someone. The reply was that the pranas were the sages. We say whatever is in this universe has been projected by the vibration of the prana. It is the prana that is moving every part of the body, becoming the different forces. Give up that old idea that God is something that produces the effect and sits on a throne dispensing justice. In walking, we become exhausted because we use up much prana. If this energy is controlled and regulated, it can be of intense value to the spiritual aspirant. Any energy runs riot if not controlled. Prana, too, tends to flow downwards if not controlled fully. Therefore, one has to control it for the good of one's spiritual progress. This prana along with the organ of action has been termed as the energy sheath. So that's important. So when we talk about the energy sheath or Pranamayakosa, it is not only prana, but along with prana, 5 senses of action, karmendriyas, are connected. So together with the 5 organs of action and prana are known as the Pranamayakosa, the life force sheath. So that's important. It's not just the prana, but together with the organs of action. Now here we have spoken about the significance or importance of prana and what are the pranas. It will talk about it once again, but in Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, there is a detailed discussion of pranas. When we are inhaling, we are not only inhaling oxygen, but together with oxygen, there are many other gases and chemicals that we inhale. All of that contains energy. That energy is prana. And that prana is what is called vital energy force, without which you cannot have any action, you cannot think. So the thoughts, mental state, or your body action are dependent on prana. What is the life force sheath, vital sheath? The 5 airs and life force, the organ of speech and other sense organs of action are together called life force or vital force. So when we say prana, remember prana, there are classification and mainly there are 5 pranas. There are sub-pranas also. Each prana is then divided into sub-categories, but it will suffice if we know 5 different pranas and their utility. So the 5 airs of prana is the one energy flowing throughout the body, no doubt, but according to its functions, it has been divided into 5 aspects of or parts. We walk, move, our limbs speak, exert, breathe, and all these activities need fuel or energy. This is provided by prana. A person may be the most intelligent man, may have countless thoughts, but if he has no energy, he cannot express them. That which keeps the body alive by bringing in oxygen and taking out carbon dioxide and convert food to energy is called prana. You see the significance. This we have read in our Pranamayakosa that all what we are made of, this gross body, is the result of what we consume in terms of food. And that consumption, that food is converted into energy, and that is the function of prana. So prana chiefly doing 2 things. All the intake that we take are converted into energy, and that energy is distributed through the blood cells, through the blood. And that action of spreading it all over the body is called Vyana, and that it will speak about it. So prana, the job of prana, which is one aspect of out of 5, is to convert food into energy. That which takes out waste from the body is called apana. Remember the importance of getting the waste out of our system, and that is made possible through the force which is known as apana. Apana vayu is so important. Imagine if people who have trouble of removing the waste from the body, body can get into big trouble, physically speaking. And so the apana vayu helps to get out the waste material. That which digests the food is called samana. So if you put it in a right sequence, it is this samana which converts the food, digest it. Whatever we take as intake is digested by the prana or by the vayu or by the air, which is known as samana. That samana is then use of prana by converting that digested food into energy. Then comes vyana. The vyana is the force which distributes this energy throughout the body. That is known as a vyana. Then apana takes out the waste from the body. And the last, the fifth one, is known as udana, which helps the spirit, the soul, to release from the body. And that's udana. So that which digests the food is called samana. That which spreads the digested food as an energy throughout the body, regulates circulation of blood, regulates the movement of body and senses is called vyana. Finally, that which takes out the soul from the body at the time of death is called udana. So these are the 5 vital force, life forces, different names given depending on their action, the performance or elements. How were the prana created? You see, this is very important understanding. Mandukya Upanishad speaks about it. From the creator emerges the 7 pranas. Now, this is the quote unquote from the Upanishad. From the creator emerges the 7 pranas. Brahma Sutra raises the question about the number of pranas. It wants to know how many pranas are there. In the next aphorism, the classification comes that there are only 5 and 7 is figurative. In the Tattvabodha Upanishad, it is said, from the Atman come out all the pranas, just as sparks fly out of the raging fire, just like the spider brings out its web. So the pranas are manifested out of Atman. What is Atman? Brahma. At the cosmic level, at the macro level. Swamiji explains the creation of prana in this way. According to the philosopher of India, the whole universe is composed of 2 materials, one of which they call Akasha. So here, the importance of Akasha, the ether. So it is the omnipresent, all-pervading existence. Everything that has form, everything that is the result of combination is evolved out of this Akasha. So try to imagine that everything that has a shape or a form exists in this sphere, in this what is known as Akasha Tattva. The other thing is this, in this context, we must know these 5 elements that we are talking about, the Panchabhuta, Mahabhuta, in that one of them, and most important, is Akasha, right? Many philosophers all over the world have so far recognized 4 elements, except Akasha. The element of Akasha, ether, is under constant deliberation. Many philosophers or scientists are still arguing about this element called Akasha. It was only the Hindu Sanatana Dharma or sages who emphasized that this Akasha Tattva is the most important because it's omnipresent. They compare Akasha Tattva as the manifestation of Brahman, without which nothing can exist. Imagine that all that we can perceive, all that we know, is in that element, is in that Akash Tattva. So when I always realize that when you look up to the sky, between you and the sky, there is a space. That space, which apparently consists nothing. Yeah, you do not see any obstacle between you and the moon, for instance, when you look at the moon. But that between you and the moon is all that we need, all different elements. Imagine your mobile phone, imagine your radio set, imagine everything which operates, technology that we use cannot exist, cannot operate without tapping those frequencies, that vibration, that energy that exists in what we call nothing or open space. That nothingness, that open space is equal to Akasha, which contains, it is the most potential energy. We have only tapped probably a couple of % of the energy that is available in that element called Akasha. And that's the importance of this element of Akasha. And the prana is the result of that Akasha. So in the beginning, it says that Tattvabodha believes that the Brahma, who known as the creator of this manifestation, had first was this prana and Akasha. These are the 2 elements that were manifested in the beginning. That is what it talks about. So it is the omnipresent, all-pervading existence. Everything that has form, everything that is a result of combination is evolved out of this Akasha. By what power is this Akasha manufactured into this universe? By the power of prana. By the power of prana. Just as Akasha is the infinite, omnipresent material of this universe, so is the prana, the infinite, omnipresent, manifesting power of this universe. At the beginning and at the end of the cycle, everything becomes Akasha. And all the forces that are in the universe resolve back into prana. In the next cycle, out of this prana is evolved everything that we call energy, everything that we call force. All the energy. We may not even realize the importance and availability of energy. But it is only that energy, which is also known as a prana, the second name, which at individual level, most significant for our existence. At the cosmic level, without that, the Akasha Tattva does not exist. All the movement and existence depend on the prana. This is the cosmic prana. So, page 191. This is the cosmic prana. The individual prana come from the cosmic prana. We have been told that the 5 pranas themselves do not make the sheath. They need something more. That something more are the 5 organs of actions. The vehicle may be ready, but without fuel, it cannot run. The fuel is the prana energy. Now, it talks about the Vedas, which contain 70% of rituals. Here is the mention of the ritual connected to prana. So there is a presiding deity for prana known as Vishwanara. This, we just need to read it as an information, but right now we are not concentrating or debating on this aspect of Vishwanara. The five life forces are not merely energies, they are divinities too, called Vishwanara collectively. Vishwanara is the universal self, the collective physical universe plus Brahman. One has to proportionate Vishwanara in order to be freed from sins and dangers of having to be born in insect and birds. Therefore, the Chandogya Upanishad teaches sacrifice to Vishwanara. This sacrifice is Agnihotra. The sacrifice is simple. He is to be adored by offering oblation to the five pranas. That is all. Before beginning to eat, first few grains are offered to prana, saying oblation to prana. The next oblation is for apana, and so on. Through this, the aspirant on eating becomes an offering to the Lord. This purifies the food being taken. If you recall the culture that we followed, many part is before eating, there is a part of the food offered outside the plate. And that is the purpose of this, that you need to make a sort of a prayer or oblation that you are offering these two different pranas, prana, apana, samana, vyana, udana, because recognizing the importance of that life force or energy. By offering the food before eating, whatever that you eat is then consuming as energy, the vital energy. The Vigati Indriya Panchakarma, the five senses of action, like speech, these have been discussed before. The five organs of action are the organs of generation and evacuation, organ of speech, hands, and feet. These, together with the five pranas, make up the pranic sheath or Pranamayakosa. So, importance of Pranamayakosa. In the Chandogya Upanishad, he who knows that what is eldest and the greatest becomes himself eldest and the greatest. The prana verily is the eldest and the greatest. So there is an analogy about the different prehistoric story about the ongoing battle between demigods and known as the evil force. And demigods, with all their power, could not win the battle against evil, the evil power. And finally, they approach a particular sage and ask for the help. And sage says, start worshipping the force, the life force, the energy called prana. So all the gods start praying for prana, taking as whatever they eat is prana. Evil force could identify it and poison it. Then they get to the eyes and say, whatever we see is the manifestation of prana. Again, the evil force could penetrate the eyesight and poison it. Finally, the demigod says, all that we breathe, entire existence is nothing but prana. And that is when the evil force could not defeat that, could not poison it, and finally they were defeated. It is just an analogy in our Puranas where it sort of glorified the importance of prana. The second sheath is more important than the first. So it says that the Pranamayakosa is more important than Annamayakosha. Since it not only accounts for the life of the food sheath, but also for its activities. Without prana, nothing can function. Neither can one perform dharma nor ordinary activities. Further, it is the prana that takes the soul out of the body at the time of death. According to Brahma Sutra, the organ of speech merges in the mind at the time of death. The mind merges in the life force, prana. The prana then merges in the individual soul. Then the departure from the body takes place. So while the very ordinary soul feel that the body is everything, there are some who understand that beyond the body, there is something which is more powerful, and that is prana. This also accounts for the Indian idea that it is neither the blood nor the gene that can bring the bodily characteristics to the newborn child. Scientists believe that the gene contains answer to all their problems. If a person has some disease, he or she has inherited it hereditarily from the parents through the medium of the genes, they say. Hindu philosophers had long ago discarded such ideas because they knew that beyond the body, beyond even the life force called prana, there is something more which is responsible for all the bodily and environmental effects. And that will be discussed in the next chapter. So it spoke in this chapter, the Pranamayakosa. Remember, we are reading 5 different sheets. Annamaya-kosha, Pranamaya-kosha, Manomaya-kosha, Vigyanmaya-kosha, and finally Anandmaya-kosha. We read last time Annamaya-kosha. Today we read Pranamaya-kosha. Now try to realize that we have started talking about the most gross physical aspect, which is Annamaya-kosha, which is visible. We know what our body is, but we do not see the Pranamaya-kosha. Why? Because it's subtle. We know the organs of actions, hands, legs, but these are only instruments. These are not really the senses. So that which help these organs of action to move, to perform, is prana, is the energy. So from the gross body to the subtler body. So the first subtler body is Pranamayakosa. Next, it will talk about Manomayakosha, which is still subtler than the Pranamayakosa. Pranamayakosa, as we do meditation, we feel the breath, inhalation and exhalation. Yeah, so there is some amount of physical aspect of it. You can feel, we can check our breath. Yeah, because there is a force. It is subtler than the body, but the mind is subtler than the prana. So we are moving from the gross to the subtle, and the last, as we speak, when we talk about Anandmaya Kosha, which is known as the subtlest body. But even that has some percentage or some amount of limitation, and therefore it is not Turiya or fourth state. And this is the purpose of studying these 5 koshas. So today we read about Pranamaya Kosha. Remember that Pranamaya Kosha, the importance of prana, what is prana, importance of it. And it also is together with the organ of action, 5 organs of action. The last para, which is very important, it says, there is one prana we spoke about called Udana. It is the Udana Vayu that takes the soul out of the body, what we call death. What is the process? First, we lose the thought. The activity of mind ceases, and that merges with your prana. And the prana merges with your soul. And through the force of Udana Vayu, the so-called Atma leaves the body. Now here, when we say Atma leaving the body, it is not the pure consciousness. It is the Jivatma or Jiv. There are two things very important to understand. When we say Jivatma, we are talking about two things, Jiva and Atma. Atma, as you know, is consciousness. And consciousness is omnipresent, eternal. Yeah. So that consciousness is everywhere. We cannot say it is left body, because when we say it is left body, that means there is a movement. If there is a movement, that means there is somewhere, there is a vacuum, there is a space. Consciousness exists everywhere, so there cannot be any movement. So consciousness per se is pervading as omnipresent. It is the jiva that leaves the body. What is jiva? Jiva are the same, these subtle bodies, which is Pranamayakosa, Manomayakosa, Vijnanmayakosha, and even Anandmayakosha. All that koshas that we are studying together is jiva. And that goes out of the body. But it has not come to its dead end. It is then stored as a seed form into different frequency in the Akasha Tattva, different energy, and wait for the next appropriate body to adopt and come back. Why? We read last time about gross body, about Annamaya Kosha. Annamaya Kosha is the result of your karmic account. You get the body suitable to complete your karmic account. So remember, try to link it up, that after death, your jiva is a potential. It is the potential energy waiting to get a second body, a next body as a rebirth. And that body is picked up according to your karmic account. Yeah, so as we read further, we will know more in detail that how is this linked? Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha. But at this point of time, the only thing to understand is this, that when we call what we call death, it's the death of those energies, that prana. Now, when we say prana, prana alone is not just the vital force, but your sense of action, organ of action. I would rather call sense of action, because organ per se is just an instrument. Hand itself does the activity. Yeah. But that activity cannot happen if I don't have the energy. Yeah? So that energy is the sense, is that vital force. Prana with that energy is what leaves the body. Now, what are the different senses? Panch Karmendriya, Panch Gyanendriya, and 5 pranas. So 15 elements are together with your vasana. That means unfulfilled desires. Intense desire and attachment brings you back to the next body. Probably it's a bit difficult to grasp it, but this is the purpose of this book, to understand. I will stop it here, and we will next class read the Manomaya Kosha, the mental. Yes, please.
You told about 5 vitals, force, samana, apana, vyana, and udhana. There are 5. Just explain, can you explain again all 5?
Okay. So we are breathing right now. Okay. Take a moment. Feel your inhalation and exhalation. Just feel it. What is happening right now? You are making no efforts. Yeah, correct? You're not doing any action. You're not making any effort to do breathing in and breathing out. It is happening without any effort. Now think about it. What are you breathing? You are breathing air in normal sense. Usual term, air. What is this air? We all know that it has different components, elements. oxygen, one of them, which is considered as the life force or energy. But it's, remember, scientists and we all know it's not only oxygen. Together with oxygen, there are many other that we consume, we inhale, including carbon dioxide. But the system organ is such designed that we do not need so much of carbon dioxide, but we need plenty of oxygen. That oxygen is not only the chemical or gas, it has element called energy or prana or life force. So we are actually breathing together with oxygen, something which is known as prana. Remember, oxygen alone in abundance can cause choking. You can choke if you put on a mask and only breathing 100% oxygen without any other combination, it can cause a choking. You can die. So the oxygen alone does not help. Together with oxygen, there are other things. One of them is known as prana. So when you are inhaling prana, now what is the job of prana? If you remember, we have discussed that from the breathing in to this point, or the base of your throat, or maximum your upper lungs, is the movement of prana. That's why we check how deeply you are inhaling or exhaling. So usually that's the force of your prana. Now, what does prana do? The prana contains the energy that helps the food that you intake is converted into energy. How does that happen? With the help of other element called samana. It is the same inhalation, but once it is into your body, it has different operation. It has different job to perform. That which can consume the food and digest it is called samana. So the digestion. So many people suffer with indigestion, constipation, whatever. That is the result of your samana not functioning well. So the operation of samana is, the job of samana is to convert all your food or liquid into the blood or digest it. And that together with prana converts into energy. Then comes the job of prana known as a vyana. The vyana spreads that energy throughout your body. How does that happen? It goes through the blood cells. So the blood that we have contains vyana. Yeah? So when you go for a blood test, you see your red cells and white cells and different cells that we have in our blood is nothing but the vyana, the energy. So if your energy, vyana, is less, which will indicate that your red cells are dropping, white cells are increasing, which is considered to be unhealthy. And that's lack of your vyana vayu. So the job of vyana is to spread the energy throughout body. Then also it is important that all what you consume is required to digest, convert into blood. Blood throughout distributed is then stored as a bone marrow. We all have a bone marrow in our spinal cord. The bone marrow is reserve energy, is bone marrow. But there is a part of your digested food which is not required in the body. And it must find an exit. How does that happen? That happens through the help of the vayu or prana known as the apana vayu. So when we do the mudra, apana vayu, this movement, this force, this udana vayu, apana vayu mudra. This is apan mudra, this is apan vayu mudra. It has connection, these veins here has the connection to your digestion and excretion. So all your waste material is out of your system. That happens because of the function of the Apan Vayu. Similarly, there is a part of prana that required for, let's say you are doing hiccups, yeah, after eating or after drinking. Sometimes we get hiccups. Sometimes you feel like throwing up, vomiting. How does that happen? That happens with the help of the Vayu called Udan Vayu. Basically, purpose of Udan Vayu is to bring the energy upward. Yeah? So this happens through the energy of Udan Vayu. And it is that Udan Vayu that also helps to get your jiva out of the body at the time of death. So remember, these are the 5 classification of prana, but each of these 5 has the sub functions. There are altogether 24 of them. Which when we
what we do in the bandhas is the movement of Udana Vayu.
Yep. Ultimately, when we talk about chakra meditation or chakra kriya, kundalini kriya, for example, kundalini yoga or kundalini kriya is only the energy which is stored, as I mentioned just now about bone marrow, etc., which is a scientific terminology, but in our yogic system, it is known as a stored energy in lying dormant in this Sushumna Nadi or Ida Pigla and Sushumna. We have to activate those nadis, those channels. How do we do that? By disciplining, by regulating our breath. And this is the purpose of Kundalini Yoga or Kriya. So we are right now reading something called Tattvabodha, which is talking based on the philosophy of non-duality, Advaita Vedanta. Correct? And what is the baseline of this philosophy? Aham Brahmasmi. I am pure consciousness. That's the bottom line. This bottom line is also approached by different systems. One of the system is yogic system. So when we study the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, it aim or target of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra is the same, liberation or awakening, yeah, or the freedom, whatever name we call, to realize that I am pure consciousness. But it has a different approach, that yogic philosophy of Patanjali. Whereas the Advaita Vedanta or non-dualism, it simply believes that here and now, if you try to question who am I or what am I, and keep thinking about it without struggling to find answer, be alive, be conscious of your question. So when I'm talking, I should parallel my mind, or my subconscious mind should say, who is talking? Is Umesh talking? Apparently, yes, it is Umesh talking, because right now that is all what we can perceive. But now that we have just studied, this body alone cannot function without the subtle body. Which is that subtle body? Pranamayakosa. Without that energy force, this body cannot function. I cannot move my hands, legs, mouth, nothing. So that's what we read today, the importance of Pranamayakosa. Next, when we read Manomayakosha, we realize the mind or the faculty of mind is much more subtler and important together with Pranamayakosa. It is appropriate to compare here that when we spoke about 3 body, yeah, remember 3 body? Which are the 3 bodies? Gross body, mental body, and the third body is causal body. Yeah. So first was the gross body. Subtle was mental body. Now, when we talk about mental body comprises three things: Pranamayakosa, Manomayakosa, Vigyanmayakosa. These three together is known as a mental body. So it's a parallel. 3 bodies, 5 sheaths. So first we understand what are the 3 bodies. Gross body, then subtle body, and causal body. Now try to sort of investigate in detail what is gross body, Annamaya Kosha. We understood that last time. Now today we started understanding what is the subtle body. One out of subtle bodies is Pranamaya Kosha, which we read today. Next, we will read the second part of the subtle body called Manomaya Kosha. And then we talk about Vigyanmaya Kosha, the buddhi, the intellect. These 3 together is subtle body. And that subtle body is equal to, in our terminology, in Hindu terminology, is Jiva. So Jiva is equal to subtle body is equal to 3. Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vigyanmaya Kosha. So we conclude by offering the prayer now, unless you have something to ask. Om. Tato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya loka samasta sukhino bhavantu loka samasta sukhino bhavantu samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, God, for giving us air to breathe. Thank you, God, for giving us water to drink. Thank you, God, for giving us sun for energy. Thank you, God, for giving us food to eat. Thank you, God, for giving us good health and happiness. Thank you, God, for giving us positivity. Thank you, God, for giving us all that we need. Thank you, God, for your love, your protection, your guidance, your blessings. Thank you, God, for the existence. Thank you for giving me a chance to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Acharya ji.
Thank you, Acharya ji. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I wish you get